Hi, everybody. It's the Doc, Daily Walsh, and Jamaris Russell, the con. Not only are we unique individuals by our experiences, but we're also both incredibly great poets. So, how are you, Jamar? Well, good to see you.
Great, man. How are you?
Very well. Why? Before we go into the poetry, why don't you just we're working our way through your programs. So why don't you tell us a little about what we're doing and about the lesson we're going to be doing today, and just catch us up a little bit on what we might have missed in the first three sessions.
So, good news to be shared, right? I think I told you about being awarded a grant. So, this grant is coming through Safer, Stronger Together, which is a combination of um, the agencies here in Maryland, Department of Corrections, hold on, DPS, Department of Safety and Public Correct. All right, DPSCS, right? Because it used to be DOC, but they took the correction. Department of Public Safety and whatever. And then there's Department of Juvenile Services and Department of Human Services, which they come
Okay.
together to find these specific red zones and stuff like that that they want to serve. And so, me amongst another a team of grantees have been awarded to be able to work in these services. And I'm bringing this up because it was an amazing meeting last night, where I got to learn about some of the people that were involved. And I've been volunteering in PG County Department of PG County Detention Center, which I've been working through this program, right? And I don't think that they were aware of that, but that's part of the whole right and freedom situation. And that was stuff that I wrote in my incarceration. So we'll be working through that. And I mean, the timing of everything is just remarkable. When we decided to agree on this, live, loved, and to do the
Right.
turn adversity to advantage, that was before that was even a thing. But we get to work through this, to go ahead and explain things through our targeted population, yours, the family of those that deal with loved ones with schizophrenia, and me dealing with those that's just as involved. So we'll be tonight focusing on responsibility. And like I said, all of this is work that I wrote while I was incarcerated, intended for the incarcerated population, to help them on. And it started as an idea as far as columns or newsletter, with the good man that y'all can look him up right now. He's an amazing artist named Drew Wole on Instagram, Drue Wole, Wole. And he's doing this thing. So far, it's been up and down the East Coast, with his art and merchandise. But he was the one that urged me to go ahead and do columns in his magazine and develop a newsletter, which I in turn turned into a zine, and then it became the workbook, turning adversity into advantage for a point of change. And tonight is responsibility. However, before we get into that, we're going to do some poetry.
We do, and I'm going to let you start off tonight. I'm always starting off.
All right,
So
well,
you.
cool. I have this alphabet poem, right? I'll be doing reading poems out of my book April, which is National Poetry Writing Month, which is also Reentry Month. Um, so this is an alphabet poem, which was the third prompt in the 30 poems in 30 days, right?
And what exactly is an alphabet poem?
I'll do a poem and I'll use every letter of the alphabet.
For the first letter?
A through Z, yes, the first letter. So
Oh, yeah, great.
A, asshole. B, black man. C, conscious of what's going on. D, damned by what's going wrong. E, elegant with speech. F, fuck that. G, going for the gusto. H, hoping the police won't assassinate me. 4, I, intelligence. Interference. J, jiving. K, keeping my head up and striving. L, living luxuriously when they think I shouldn't be. M. Making money. N. Never broke. O. Only broken. P. Praying daily. Q. Quietly seeking. R. Restoration, revelation, redemption, reparations. S. Sing. T. Treasures, tropics, palm trees. U. Unbelievable. V. Vision. W. Where I came from. X. Ex-con. Y. Yesterday, today. Z. Zenith.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's But what I used to do is not just have like individual words, but like try to like all weave it into like a coherent poem. That's what I had like fun doing. But I noticed a few things, and that was not only never broke, or only broken or something, but I noticed that theme of not only like always having money and everything, but also the palm trees and the beaches and everything.
Hmm.
That's your ideal, right,
Yeah,
Jamar?
definitely, man. That's the ideal place, man.
We're probably going to do two rounds of poetry today. This is my first one. It was written on March. Oh, I'm dispensing with my books for a while. I'm going to go back to my most recent poetry and stuff that I've written in the last year because even though the old stuff is very good, I think it's nice to get a sense of really where I'm at because
Hmm.
I'm far beyond where I was in 2014. So this is called Getting Beyond Sons of Dale. And I just want to say this is while I still was in THC but not on THC. So it goes Getting Beyond Sons of Dale. Lord, I truly did not mean to usurp your place in the world when I made my divine claims, but rather I desired the earth to experience the sensation of your infinite presence through the knowledge that I, as God, was on this planet. So now I've been confined to a small corner of an apartment building in the Garden State, where the mild winter has been daily unfolding, as I dream of embracing the passionate arms of the bride I can't even prove in fact exists. Although I've been conversating 5 years with the possibility of her actual reality, even as the years slide from this aging body like snow melting off aluminum siding of the house I anticipate building with her. If in fact we can ever physically rendezvous, in the context of three dimensions where lies the manifest state of the perfect avatar she has revealed to me in endless selfies, I do not have the heart to deny her real.
Such a romantic, huh?
Try to be.
Love a boy. Yeah, yeah. That's for that
I'm a
rose.
writer, not a fighter.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So, turning turning adversity into advantage, huh?
Yeah, so let's get on with lesson four, responsibility. You got anything to share?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share the screen and go ahead read the lesson. Okay, well it just started me all the way from the beginning. Let's see.
There we go.
Responsibility. All right. Most people do not really want freedom because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. That's Sigmund Freud. So, um, I'll be reading through the rest of this. The above quote made me think of another. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance. I wonder when Frederick Douglass wrote this if he meant that he would always have to be on the lookout for slave catchers or be constantly mindful of the infringement on civil liberties. Well, We know that he wasn't in consideration with civil liberties, and I'm still not sure that I am. Regardless of the scale, what both regardless of the scale, what both writers are saying is that freedom requires work on our part. So what is the responsibility or eternal vigilance that they speak of? For those of us incarcerated, we know that just staying out of trouble requires that we conduct ourselves a certain way. This is something that is going to have to be transferred when we enter into society. We will have to conduct ourselves a certain way that is acceptable and agreeable to what's necessary to society's standard. This will include obeying all laws, reporting to those we need to, keeping employment, paying bills, and adjusting accordingly to the various changes in the environment. This is different from the controlled environment that we are used to and experience every day in here. This is our responsibility if we want to stay out. These are the things that we have to be eternally vigilant about. Write it out. This is where D'Amico Booth speaks of three P's: proper prison planning, in his book, Getting Out and Staying Out. I use the five P's. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. What is going to ensure that I keep my freedom? What is my home plan? Is this in a high crime area or a place that I will have to worry about the triggers that will lead to something unlawful? Do I have options? Do I have a place of employment? If so, will it allow me to earn enough income to take care of all of my needs? How much is that? Where is my PO's office? Do I have transportation to get me where I need to be when I need to be there? What else will I do with my time so that I can productively contribute to society and my well being? It is our responsibility to answer these questions and put a plan in order to ensure that we can successfully do what is necessary to stay free. This is our responsibility. We have the time now to be creative if we can't answer all of the questions. We have to figure this stuff out if freedom is really what we want. I've prepared myself for the absolute worst case scenario. I read this book once titled Guide to Homelessness. After reading how that woman survived with the use of the library's internet, I knew I can do it too. Preparation counters fear. Exercise. Answer the questions in the paragraph that starts. Write it out. What is going to ensure that I keep my freedom? What is my home plan? Is this in a high crime area or a place that I will have to worry about the triggers that will lead to something unlawful? Do I have options? Do I have a place of employment? If so, will it allow me to earn enough income to take care of all my needs? How much is that? Where is my PO's office? Do I have transportation to get me to where I need to be when I need to be there? What else do I do with my time so that I can productively contribute to society? So, um, the whole thing about with writing that, generally, I would hear people while I was incarcerated say, "I want to go home. I want to be free. I want my freedom." But their actions inside weren't didn't coincide with what they said they wanted. So,
Right.
our responsibility, whether we had all the resources or not, to prepare for that. I discovered that because even when I was in the street, I didn't prepare for what it was that I wanted. At one point in time, my goal was to get 10,000. I got 10,000, and then it was like, well, okay, well, I go for 20,000. You know,
Right.
even when I met my goal, I didn't have a plan for that because my goal was never to continue to just stay in the street, but I didn't have an exit plan. So when I sat down and I reflected on all of this, I realized that you have to have goals for after the goal. and you have to be prepared for when you actually receive your goal or reach your goal. So
Right.
if freedom was my goal or the goals of others in there, it was my duty to prepare for it so that I didn't just reach and then not know what to do next. Because what's after that? A lot of times we have goals, but the goal is for what? Then after we receive reach the goals or receive whatever it is that we want, then what? So everything pertaining to freedom or pertaining to being a legit citizen and staying free, those were how I got those questions. And unfortunately, we can never really know how it goes when we transition out, right?
Right.
However, if we do have a plan, we do prepare, we'll be better off than not having it.
Right.
So, excuse me. Unfortunately, reentry program in which I came out of, there have been some guys that had to return back to prison, and that came from poor preparation. You know, it came from still living in old habits, that criminal thinking and all of that. So the best thing to combat that is to make sure that a person has an idea, as to what they're going to do. And the fact of the matter is, whether you come out on probation or parole, you'll have to answer to somebody. And even if you don't, let's say you didn't have any of that, still, what are you going to do to ensure that you stay free?
Right.
And so all of these are the questions that have to be done. I mean, have to be answered, and it comes with a responsibility of the individual. And that's one of the things, even while in, a person has to become accountable. They have to be responsible for themselves, for their actions, and know that it doesn't fall on anybody. Because a lot of people inside could play the role of the victim. They may have committed a heinous crime or done all of this
Right.
stuff, but it's all why me and why am I in here, or the police did this craziness to me or stuff like that. Now, mind you, there's some innocent people in there, and there's some people that were forced to take plea deals that just because they was in fear of them um, catching more time when it just wasn't the case. It wasn't their situation, and that's unfortunate. But for a good majority of people, it's a victim mentality, and that's one of the things that's difficult for them to get over, and it's something that impedes them from going forward and getting their freedom.
Well, that's actually one of the biggest obstacles I found in not only my own journey, basically the whole mental illness recovery journey is this this victimhood and this. I mean, I really feel the system encourages it. Just putting doctors and therapists and nurses and everybody in a superior position to the patient, and there's absolutely no way a professional looking from the outside can comprehend what mental illness is. I mean, I think my friend Marie Claus once said to me, she said, nobody realizes the pain of mental illness until you've been through it, and it's really true. So, all these like quote professionals who are like basically they, their livelihood depends on keeping people dependent on them. I mean, this is really what I feel. And I mean, besides the fact that most of them are dealing with it or trying to deal with their own issues by projecting them onto their patients, but that's a whole different story. But basically, this idea that, you know, you're going to need me for 5 years to get out of this because that's uh, that's what the normal is, and basically So not only is it economic, but it's also like an emotional and and energetic like compromise of the self that the doctors are like protect that most professionals are taking part in because it's in their best interest to keep the mentally ill dependent on the medications and their inability to think for themselves.
As you were talking about that, it made me think of so we both were in two different type of institutions, but some of the things, same thing happens. Uh, in my situation, guys tend to be grouped because of whatever they think. When I say they, I mean the COs, the staff. When I say COs, I mean correctional officers. The staff views guys that are incarcerated. So I believe in their training, and I don't know, I haven't been through their training, but I assume that they're taught to think that guys will be manipulative and, they're just criminals and they're going to be doing this or try to do this and they're the worst or whatever movies or stuff like that. And that may be true for some, but not for everybody. So, what I'm trying to get at is the generalizations. So, and this is what happens if somebody does something crazy in the institution, it'll make it harder for a lot of other people,
Right,
right? So let's say there's some people that were ever in your institution, and because some of these people may have been dangerous and violent, now the staff is treating everybody with caution, or because some other people will be whatever way, there's a grouping. When there's a mentality that is dealt with when a person thinks, oh, you're categorized as this or that. So for a minute, while I was incarcerated, I was on the SNU unit, which is special needs unit, right? I was there to be a SNU mentor. Um, and I used to take time to mentor and do certain things with certain guys, that they would allow me to. And for a minute, I was told by one of the guys in psych in psychology that dealt with all of that it helped boost the morale as far as the energy and everything on that unit. The bad thing is that, of course, still in jail.
right,
Still have people that's on whatever they on, might be trying to get high. People might trying to take advantage of these people, stuff like this. So somebody reported to an officer or said something that I was moving narcotics or something on this unit, right? Now,
right,
when I decided I wasn't going to do any more crime in the county jail, I haven't sold any drugs since I don't know, it's, but at
right,
this time, it was one of those things where I was looking at, here I am coming to help over here, but then somebody wants to tarnish my name. When I worked hard to have my credibility in my name and stuff like that. So I told them by this time I was no longer on a SNU unit. I was on the honor tier, and I was still coming over there from the honor tier to help mentor. But I had to tell the brother that was in psych after that. I said, "Look, I'm not doing that anymore because you're not going to put me in jeopardy of losing the stuff that I worked for while I've been over
right,
here just because y'all want to put a bad bone on me." And that's the thing that unfortunately happens, you know. And it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters what institution that you're in. Even out here dealing with people, you know, people will lie on you just because either they have some type of ulterior motives, they feel like you in their way, they're jealous, envious, or whatever,
right,
or they just make stuff up, because it's entertaining for them, you know, and that's the unfortunate part about things. But still, regardless, man, I push to do the work, to change the narrative.
right.
Yeah.
So that was something I wanted to bring up about the lesson today is and the questions. You know, you basically said you know, pre-planning and preparation. Do you have a place of employment? Where is it? Can you get to it and everything? And I was just thinking, you know, maybe it would be like more empowering to put in something to the effect of, and if you don't have employment, how do you prepare? How do you propose to support yourself? Are you an entrepreneur? And maybe just put something like that into their heads, you know, and basically, so because I mean, you know this probably a lot better, obviously a lot better than I do, but you know, from what I've heard, one of the big obstacles to recidivism is that a lot of employers, as soon as they see you have a record, a prison record, either can't or won't hire you. So, and I admire greatly what you've done with yourself, Jamar, and like become an entrepreneur and use, you know, all the skills to build your own business. But I was just going to suggest, you know, why not put the possibility of like owning a business and being an entrepreneur in people's heads when they're going to the exercises rather than just going back to the traditional 9 to 5. We gotta work. We gotta work. Kill. You know, waste our lives making money working.
You're getting ahead of us, Dale. That's in another exercise, another lesson. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but the thing about it, why I pose those questions is because, um, a lot of individuals have never had to do that. A lot of them had been being incarcerated, throughout their youth, go back into the streets, and come in, or they come in when they've been young, 17, 18, 19. Some of them as young as 14 and 15. That even going into the adult system, depending on their crime, depending on the situation. But none of these young people, or some of those that are older, have never had those responsibilities before. So
Right.
I've been around a lot of guys. They say, "Man, I'm gonna go back to school, or I'm gonna go to college." Fine. How you gonna support yourself? If you've never
Right.
been to college and you've never been on that level with stuff, how do you think that's gonna work, right? Or even guys that say, "Man, I'm gonna get a job," and they think that just any job is gonna suffice. And it's like, okay, well, how are you going to? And so these questions are things that people will have to, think about. It'll provoke thought. Get them to actually start really looking at things. Because I know guys are like, man, shoot, I don't even care. I work at McDonald's, all this other stuff, and that's good. It's a good start. But if it's not going to help provide for your living, your cost of living, and everything like that, that also can be a trigger where a person like, well, I'm not making enough. I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna do that to survive. So that's the whole thing with that, man. And it's just getting the thoughts because a person has to start thinking about that. What is it going to take? Where is my POs off? How will I get there? Because I even remember having a conversation with a guy, and we in prison, and he was talking about, man, I'm still gonna carry me a pistol, and I'm thinking like, what? Like
Right.
that don't, but he like, man, you don't even understand because where he was and he lived in Baltimore, the PO's office is even in a place where it still goes down. So he like,
Right.
man, and for guys that involved with crime, involved with gangs and stuff like that, you never know. So it might be they might have a target on their back or whatever. So it's like, man, well, where else can you go? Where else can be your home plan? Where can you go to what's not? And these are questions that have to be had because it's not something that everybody lives with. Like when I talk or I make this, it's for those that know about that. Everybody is not going to relate to, yeah. And even when you ask to think about starting a business and stuff like that, that's not the easiest thing for everybody. We're talking about guys that I've worked with as far as their literacy, um, their math, different things, just a lot of things that people take for granted that they have no problem with out here. Guys that, they used to hustling, robbing, some other stuff, getting it in that sort. So to think about these things and be more responsible instead of just freestyling everything, you know, then it starts to add a little bit more structure and planning to what it's going to take to stay out here.
So I just had this is are just questions that came. So when someone is say someone's like you, uh, you were inside for 12 years, and then okay, you had like a process to like basically get back into the community, right?
Yeah.
And then and then, so on the day that you got out, did you have like a job and a place to live lined up? And was that like the norm, or was that basically sort of like extraordinary?
So, excuse me. So, part of the reentry program, you had to have a place to stay in order to be released into the program. You had to basically have what is called a home plan, right? And they would go through, check everything out, and they did, and everything was good. Um, everything was good as far as that was concerned, but as far as employment, no. There was no employment for me when I had to actually get that. And the story with that is the reentry program itself already had a lot of obligations. We had to have two random urinalysis and a urine on Wednesdays. We were going to court on Wednesdays. We also had to do either therapy or some type. I was kind of upset about that because when I got there to the program, I was like, I used to run these programs inside, right? You're making me go to a program that I can teach them more from my, experience than what they can. And it was just like, they was like, well, you either do that or get a job. And I had been trying to, um, Home Depot, which says that they doesn't discriminate. I got to a second job interview, and then wrote about everything involving my crime, and it went up to corporate, and they said no, and that was a little disappointing, but it wasn't really for me. I had a friend of, which was the cousin of one of the guys that was in the program with me. She helped me get at the front desk of the La Quinta Hotel, um, which I did that, and I also had landed a job at Buffalo Wild Wings. So I was doing both of these part-time jobs at the same time, so I wouldn't have to do that program, and so that I could start, having the
Right.
income to get around. But that was a blessing because I want to say if I got out in October, I was employed by December. So
Okay.
that was pretty good. But there's people that been out, like a guy that's in the program that I was at today. He said it took him a year, so everybody's situation is different. And he was ex-military and had a background in finance, so which is crazy because you would think that just off of him being a veteran, that would have helped him, but everybody's situation is different. That's why um, having these type of things in play and maybe having somebody to help navigate and motivate, you know, can be a great service to anybody transitioning. So yeah, that's pretty much that. But I had the home. I've been blessed with that. Even being helped with transportation, because even that was something that I didn't want to keep relying on rides for, you know. And where I wasn't a place where the public transportation came on a regular basis. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about transportation and like, did you have a car and everything? But yeah. So, but basically, this is something. I mean, the overriding theme of today is responsibility and freedom and responsibility. Uh, from the very beginning of today's lesson, you were tying them together and everything, and I think. That quote by Freud about people are afraid of responsibility and therefore they're terrified. I mean, he didn't say this, but basically they're scared of responsibility, but they're terrified of freedom.
I can
And
pull it up again if you need me to.
no, well, I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, do that.
Okay. Let's see. All right. So the quote was, oh, shoot. Most people don't really want freedom because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility.
Yeah, so people are frightened of responsibility, but I think they're even more terrified. And this gets back to what you were saying about freedom demands vigilance, because freedom isn't free. What I feel has happened is for the last since 1947, we've been in a Fred rather than a freed situation. And therefore, uh, you know, the reason being basically because everyone is terrified of taking responsibility for the freedom that they they claim they want, but nobody is ready to uh, basically understand what that freedom really involves and how go about getting it. And it's not only responsibility; it's also accountability.
So this was certain things that I used to think about while I was in there too. Is that um, because of course the guys had the news on all the time and wanted to talk about this and talk about that, and I used to question. I'm like, did you even ever vote? Like you have so much opinion on politics and what somebody do, but are you actually involved in it? And then do you even know, it is when you actually go to the ballot that you're not just voting for one person, though you could. Like there's so many other things that you have to be involved in to actually know who represents you. And so when we talk about responsibility, there's those things because you have people that say, "Oh, I don't vote." Then don't complain about anything. If you're not going to do that or you're not going to do put in certain work, then you pretty much forfeiting your right to say anything. Of course, you got the freedom of speech, but I'm not trying to hear that. If you're not going to put any work in, shut up. So,
But I'm sure I told you this before, but opinions are like assholes. Everyone has
yeah,
one.
and that's one of those things that look, you don't have to vote, but just know that when something goes down and stuff like that, you missed your opportunity to have a say so on it. Or if you're not doing anything where you're paying taxes or you're contributing to society or with any type of way, you are forfeiting your voice, your time to actually participate in this. Well, I was about to say a democratic society, but it's more of a republic anyway. But still, you you know you give up that, and this whole society is still consists of people, regardless of what a person may say is capitalistic, is this, that, it's still people. If your dollar can be a vote, you know, if you're going to spend somewhere, choose not to spend somewhere. Will you choose to give your attention? Will you choose to speak? Wherever you choose to patronize, whoever you choose to vote for or support, that's being actively engaged. But if you're not doing that and you just a spectator, I don't want to hear it.
Right. Well, that's actually I meant I don't know how much you want to go into this, but the hotbed issue for today. We'll probably you'll probably see this in a couple of weeks, but today the hot issue is the shooting of the by the ICE agent of the lady in Minnesota. And I was talking to Andrew about this, my other podcast co-host, and he's the one who's like really focused me on self sovereignty and basically cultivating my own authority and my own power rather than giving it to other people. And he was very upset about what was going on about about Minnesota, and he said, "Did you see the tape?" And I said, "No," and he said, I think you should watch it and everything. He said he started going on about the president and how if I even said Donald or Trump, then he was going to censor it and everything. And I just like sort of like said to him, Andy, listen to yourself.
Hmm.
I mean, you're the one who's always talking about how everything is a creation of screens and everything, and you're saying you're getting so triggered by this, and I mean, I don't mean to be insensitive, and I'm not saying it didn't happen, but did it happen? And I told him I'm not going to watch that video. Why should I watch that video? I mean. It's just like two people who are full of hatred fighting each other, and one of them died, and the other one's going to be crucified. So, and they're trying to blame it all
We're
on the
not,
president.
because sometimes
And
police don't get penalized for that type of stuff. But
right, well, exactly, but but the whole thing is, you know, it's absurd. It's like I said to Andrew, you stub your toe and you blame Trump. Okay, Trump has instituted a policy that's very unpopular with a lot of people, the ICE policy. But if you have a renegade cop or a bad cop shoot somebody, you don't indict the mayor of the city.
or the
You
whole
know,
police force for that matter. But
right, right. And the thing is that okay, it's obviously a tragedy. I'm sure the video was very traumatic and everything, but ultimately, to what degree is it real? And, what's the purpose of it? It's like I said to Andrew, is you're talking about the two opposite poles of the duality where we believe in the unity in the middle, and you're completely missing that, Andrew. And I think that's really like, you know, people talking about Charlie Kirk and now this and everything, and how it's going to be a tipping point, is going to throw us into revolution and the Civil War and everything. It's just like no, because nobody's paying attention. I mean, when when you think about how many people watched replays of 9/11, and really how many people are watching replays of this is like totally minuscule. I would suppose. Have you watched anything about this,
I seen
Jamar?
something came up on the Instagram feed and I never watched it. But now that you said it, I said, oh, that must have been what that is. Because as soon as I see conflict with police, it's just, I pretty much have an idea which way it's going to go. you know, every once in a while I can be surprised. I thought that when you was talking about everything, you was going to talk about the Venezuela situation, which I thought was just some super gangster stuff. Like
It was.
we going listen. You got the oil and the gold. We coming for that.
Yeah.
Y'all people still talking about the economy? We got a solution for that. It's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what? Like, hold up. Like, look, now it'd be a problem if somebody go take over a neighborhood or a city or something like that. But it's like, hey, you the president, you go ahead, man. We take over, go there, put some people in place. Yeah. Or
And we're breaking the power of the Russians and the Chinese
so
and the
I
Iranians
guess
at the
when you're
same
talking
time.
about, because there's always this I guess this power struggle with the three superpowers, which I would say is China, Russia, us. It's a matter of who's gonna make the plays and do whatever they're gonna do to get where they can be. And hey, that was a play right there. And it's just like, and these are things that goes on in the world. Like you can either be appalled by the big stuff or the small stuff. That stuff that's going on with um, those that they consider immigrants. It's unfortunate because that's what this country is made of. What happens with an officer, we know all of them ain't right. A lot of them are not really. They don't know the laws.
They aren't
Yeah,
professional.
they don't know the laws. Some of them are mentally stable. Some of them deal with their own trauma. Some of them already are there because they're trying to abuse the law. They're people. That's what it is. You have something that, people, unfortunately, which I look at it as you get a badge, you get a license to kill. Because it's one of those things like, look how they equipped. You
Right,
get
right,
you basically got a whole uniform. You like a soldier pretty much, but you dealing with civilians. And my thing has always been, why don't you have rubber bullets? Why are you
right.
taught to shoot center mass on the head? What is that about? We talking about, I could see if we was dealing with, some extremists, some foreign terrorists or something like that, but your
ISIS or
job
stuff.
is to you're supposed to be trying to serve and protect, which that is not what this is about. But even if you have to um, put somebody down to detain them, you can do that without using lethal force. And that
Right.
always has been my thing because I know security guards that have to pass a shooting test. So if that's just for security, a police should be able to learn how to shoot somebody other than in their head or in their chest and kill them, But I understand there's a level of fear, which this is the other thing. This an element. Like, how can you really train people to be calm when there's gunfire or when there's a threat, or how to do that? So there's a lot of elements with that you know is just a lot. But man, look,
But that's the other side. I meant, sorry, I didn't mean to. But that's the thing. I meant, ICE was like, I don't even know if ICE existed before Trump came in, but if it did, ICE was like basically created out of nothingness to deal with a very severe and complex problem in a way that would show the American electorate that Trump was taking action on what they thought they want, on what they thought they wanted. And now it's becoming obvious that maybe this isn't what they
yeah,
wanted, but the tidal wave of the action is already taken over. So and that's something that Trump has to deal with because it's basically everybody sees ICE as his beast. So if your dog's
what
out
we
of
have to deal
control,
with though, because remember the hope poem? And I was saying, I hope people, you know what I'm saying, you, this is what you asked for. This is what you voted for. So for those
right?
that like this, you're getting what you want. But the fact of the matter is, like I said, these are still people. And like, for me, it would be ideal because it has been proven that even in workplaces that are diverse, it adds more value to the company because you can serve more, you get different perspectives. Same thing with this country. Some of the most diverse places, New York, maybe in Miami, LA, stuff like that. These are places that, their economies do very, very well. There's a lot that's going on, and there's something about that. However, certain people thought that there was a threat of people coming in and taking their jobs. I don't believe a person could take your job if you're doing your job good. So
Right.
that right there is some BS. Maybe somebody can undercut you because they're doing cheaper work, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're doing better work. And then there has to be the thing of what are they running away from? What is that? Like there has to be motives. If a person is going to break the law, even if that means going into another country, what is the motive? There has to be something wrong, and
Right.
those are the things that people tend not to look at. They just look at the effect of whatever's going on. And when people can't eat, unfortunately, there's crime. So how do we solve those problems? You know, because I felt like it was a tragedy, and I had it in one of my children's books. Dealing with the separation of the children from their families at the border. That's terrible. Because then you can't find them or get them back to detain children anyway. It's something that's crazy, especially when they haven't been doing anything wrong. But it's things that, like you said, it was something that hadn't been around, so the kinks hadn't been worked out. It was just a bunch of people screaming for this, and when you scream for it, then something happens. That's something similar to the war on drugs. When they created that whole 94 crime bill, when they start really cracking down in urban areas, putting a lot of black men, black people in prison because of those drugs, what you did was you removed a bunch of men. So the young folks growing up, particularly the males, did not have anybody to teach them how to do that. So it made an even worse problem, you know. When they're thinking about that, then there's even more resentment for the police and the law and the government and stuff like that. So it's like, what are you doing? Then it took people away for so long, and it became to where it's a problem of overpopulation and crowding in the prison, with breeded more crime. And some of the people that came out with shorter time, now they're, and it just keeps on with in a bad effect. So it's things where things get set in play just off of people's emotions without them thinking about the long term effects.
Well, plus the problem is definitely compounded by the fact that more and more prisons are becoming the only mental hospitals there are for people who are out of control.
Nah, sure enough, sure enough. I had this poem called Cuckoo, and I can't remember it. Right? Because that's just what the fact of the matter is. You have a lot of people with undiagnosed mental health issues, people that deal with a lot of trauma, people that do that because, they had closed down so much after the 70s. So, you have people going other places where you think that they're criminal, but they're actually dealing with problems, you know. Yeah. But hey, man, it's almost time that you got a poem for us.
I do. I actually, so as I said, the poem I read before was on 3 March 25, and actually that was very close to the day where I popped a balloon in my God delusions after 50 years and got back to being Dale. But that that was uh, that was after before I went back to cannabis, and the second poem is after I went back to cannabis, and it's called "The Possibilities for Dale Expression." Uh, in March, I was about 25 days away from going back, and now I'm like a month after going back, and it goes like this. Hold on. Oh wait. I got I feel a sneeze coming on, but the possibilities for Dale expression lead me back to the unit, so to fly again. The Starliner presently anchored there, which has not been out of the garage for almost a score of years, and it's time to re-engage to restructure biosphere, to respond to its man-created wound. When pus flow is finally under control, but still screams of insomniac and infants thrash against tsunami tides of destiny as we step hand in hand into love, ready to instruct in health and wealth, and beauty of which you're the prototype, raised in the garden of wondrous chaos that brought us together in convergence of both desire of flesh and worship of soul, glowing the way into supreme consciousness when earth avatars vanish into darkness, of a glimpse of the power of the realm of King Jesus and the Father he represents since the first scope of creative awareness.
So I'm going to read from the 22nd prompt of
Oh,
the 30 Poems in 30 Days, which is an origin story. So
okay.
I came from my grandmother's house on the 4400 block of Georgia Avenue, the only boy in a house full of women and girls. I loved that house and the small radius that made up that world. None of the things that I later learned to be wrong was off to me. I came from a place where having a father in the home wasn't normal. I came from a place where the crack epidemic caused city under siege in DC. CP usage is known in my area, and someone on it stabbed my Uncle Mike. I remember his funeral. I came from a place where police frisked guys on the corner. I came from 2 doors from where they killed Eric King, and I learned that things can happen so that you won't be here any longer. I came from playing with Harvey and Toto on a makeshift basketball court in the alley. I came from seeing how crack had its effect on my mother, on their mother and my aunt Kathy. I came from seeing I came from moving to Hyattsville around Chillum as an improvement. I came from thinking mom's mismanagement of funds ruined it. I came from summers in Camden and Sicklerville, New Jersey. I came from watching my older cousins and brother learning to be a G. I came from having my self-esteem drop once my gift fell off and seeing yellow and pink slips on the door. I came from accepting that I had an addict for a pops and I shouldn't want more. I came from honor roll and thriving in school to being on the fence about what I should do. I came from seeing others have better who weren't better and asking why. I came from not seeing how I could succeed with the things I tried. I came from getting high and drunk to escape and selling drugs. I came from wondering if I would see 18 once I had my first gun, loading it with slugs. I came from being in the dorm of North Carolina A&T thinking I made it. I came from a series of ups and downs, good and bad experience that made me. I came from having the sun chase me home, being out all night selling hard. I came from carrying a pistol because I'd been robbed. I came from being in them hotels watching the pipe burn clean to ensure the product was good. I came from working several jobs without being able to sustain or have a pocket full. I came from a couple of small stints and pissing in a cup. I came from fear, paranoia, frustration, ignorance, pain, and anger that led me to cuffs.
Very nice.
Yeah, so um
So, want to sum up responsibility for us, Joy?
it's our responsibility to do whatever it is that we feel like um is our goal, right? And the writing the goal was freedom. So the responsibility was to learn not only how to obtain freedom, but to secure freedom. So if a person has a goal in anything else in life, whether it's some level of success, some money, some happiness, some contentment, it's not only how to obtain that, but how to secure that. So that's our responsibility to learn all of the elements and everything which is going to take in preparation for that thing. And even though things may not work out as we plan, they say those who fail to plan, plan to fail. So if we want to be successful in anything, it's our responsibility to do our due diligence.
And to not only build but also secure. I think by secure you mean to keep it too.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I meant.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Great summary, and yeah. So we'll see everybody soon. Leave comments, leave likes and
Like,
follows, and
subscribe, all of that good stuff. Get Dale
subscribe. That's the word I was looking
10,000
for.
10,000 views, 10,000 followers. Help him reach his goal of having that million. You know,
Yeah, yeah. And don't disappoint us, people. We're talking for you.
amen.
Okay, have a great one.